All right, let's bring in our think tank tonight. They may have a few things to say about all this. Joining me tonight, criminal defense attorney Jay Hebert, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney Monica Lindstrom, and former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. Great to have you all here. Guys, I'm sorry, but it's always, not always, just about always, ladies first here on Court TV. Monica, I mean, if you let one celebrity out because of this, then every criminal defendant in this country is going to say, why not me?
Yeah, and they're all going to say, Vinny, that it's because the celebrity has money or they have followers or something like that. But if you listen to what his attorney said, it's more about the situation that that particular defendant is in, right? So he's pre-trial, which means he hasn't been convicted yet. They need to look at the safety issues, the health issues, whereas the rapper, R. Kelly's a singer, but the rapper that Chanley was talking about, he has underlying health issues. So that's something that they're going to take into consideration. So I think it's less about whether somebody is a celebrity and more about the underlying conditions that they have and that where they're at in the process and whether they're a danger to themselves or the alleged victims out there or the community as a whole. So there's a lot that you have to look at when deciding these cases. But no matter what, Vinny, you let out one celebrity and that court of public opinion is going to say, yep, you can buy your freedom.
Yeah, I gotta call BS on that. I mean, asthma, are you kidding me? I mean, everyone's bringing a doctor's note. I feel like I'm back in school where every federal state prisoner has some sort of medical condition that purportedly requires them to be released. I mean, are you kidding me? These are people that aren't going to follow the rules. If they're let out, they're criminals. They're not going to social distance. So, in fact, if they're out, they're going to expose the regular population, the innocent folks, even more. So I'm against all these release requests.
Jay Hebert, you're sitting there. I know you defend folks. Would you like to have R. Kelly released in your neighborhood?
Not tonight, Vinny. Not on any particular night based on the allegations. But the bottom line is we are taking this very seriously, and we are looking at this on a case-by-case basis. I would dealt with this exact issue today in court via teleconference. And that's what the courts are forcing us to do, which is how we have to work through the system and look at this on an individual case-by-case basis. And the good news is, I believe that we're taking a lot of the misdemeanor crimes, the things that are not punishable by more than a year in county jail for non-serious, non-violent offenders, and we're trying to find alternatives to putting them back into society, either through home detention or, in this particular case today, we dealt with an ankle bracelet monitor so we knew the whereabouts and the alcohol consumption of an individual that we had in court today. So the courts are looking at this. Everybody's working very hard. We don't want more people to get sick. We want to control this thing. And unfortunately, people are going to break the rules, and crime and punishment needs to move forward.
Neama, I want to take a listen to Steve Greenberg, where he's talking about some of those notes that you're talking about, some of those excuses that we're hearing. Here's a list of R. Kelly's health issues.
The present environment that he's in is risky to his health and everyone else's health.
Does he have health issues?
He does have health issues. He's had surgery. He had a hernia surgery while he was in jail. He has high blood pressure. He has a slip disc that he's dealing with. But no, he doesn't have asthma, which places him in a higher risk than most people. But he's 53 years old, and he's in a jail environment. I don't think that someone who is in jail, who is charged with a nonviolent, and I'm talking serious violence, a nonviolent felony, should be held in jail. They should make an accommodation that through today's technology, all of these people can be released and can be monitored on an electronic monitoring bracelet, and they should all be released. These are strange times. These are unprecedented times, and they call for, unique solutions.
Neama, I like Steve, but he says they all should be released. All of them.
Yeah, I like Steve too, but I'm going to have to disagree on this one. These are child rapists. I don't want them in my neighborhood. I don't want them released. I mean, these aren't, minor offenses that Jay was talking about. These are serious sexual offenses, rape of minor children. Absolutely not. There's no reason R. Kelly should be released pending trial.
Ditto.
Monica, where do we draw the line here? Where do we draw the line?
Well, like we said earlier, you have to take it on a case-by-case basis. And I think you really have to draw the line at, you have to look at the underlying offense, either of what they're convicted of or what they're standing trial for. And as an example, R. Kelly, we're talking child rape, serious violent offense. Are you kidding me? Anyway, I just can't even believe he said that it wasn't violent or serious. But anyway, I think that's where you start. That's where you start. And then you go from there and look at health issues.
And I'll bet you this, Vinny.
Jay, you wanted to jump in?
There aren't going to be anybody getting out that has a bond like R. Kelly has, a zero bond or an extremely high bond. It's not going to happen. Those issues were fully vetted when this person was placed into custody and evaluated by the prosecution and the defense and a court. And a court made a ruling he doesn't get a bond. And I agree. This is not a Mickey Mouse charge. These are incredibly serious sexually violent offenses for which could put him in prison for the rest of his life. And then you couple that with the flight risk, which, as you said in your opening monologue, he thought and still thinks he can fly.
Yeah, Vinny, you have every single notorious criminal, Bernie Madoff, the head of the Cali cartel. Every single criminal defendant is using this as a get-out-of-jail-free card. I mean, this is like a public health crisis. We don't want to make it a criminal crisis by releasing all these people into the streets.
You know, I guess I'll be the one to say this, Vinny, because there's people out there thinking this. They're in jail for a reason. So what if they get sick? I mean, people are thinking that. I know that that's not very, PC for me to say, but there's people going, so what if you get the flu or flu-like symptoms? Look at what you did.
Yeah, and everyone has a story.
Yeah, I mean,
Abinati's story and his filing was that his cellmate had flu-like symptoms and had to be removed. That's the whole basis of his motion, not that he's sick or he's at high risk, that his cellmate was sick. I mean, think about this. We're just opening the door here.
Yeah, and the other thing is, once they're set free, and I think someone said this, are they the kind of people who are going to follow the rules once they get out? That is the biggest danger, are the people who aren't following the rules. All right, everybody's warmed up, right? You ready? When we come back, let's talk about Jodi Arias. Her streak continues of losing in courtrooms, this time an appellate courtroom.
I wasn't a fan of Miss Arias. My job wasn't really to like her. My job wasn't to be her friend. My job was to defend her constitutional rights and try to seek a life sentence for her or anything less than death for that matter.
That's Kirk Nurmi, the former attorney for Jodi Arias. And trust me, folks, he hates her probably more than you do. He is not a fan, not a friend, and really does not like Jodi Arias. By the way, Jodi Arias appealing her conviction like many criminal defendants do. I like doing stories about criminal defendants' appeals because that means that they were convicted, and it usually means that they're in prison at this time. And at least from the perspective of most of these cases that I've covered through the years, there are exceptions that justice was served and now they're trying to get a second bite at the apple. Well, Jodi Arias tried to get a second bite, denied. Seema Iyer has the story.
Convicted murderer Jodi Arias won't be getting a new trial, and that's because the Arizona Court of Appeals upheld Arias' first-degree murder conviction and life sentence for the 2008 killing of her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Attorneys for Arias had argued that she was deprived of her right to a fair trial because of prosecutor Juan Martinez's misconduct and the judge's failure to control the trial publicity during the high-profile murder case.
And you would acknowledge that that stabbing was with the knife, right?
Yes.
And according to your version of events, you would acknowledge that that stabbing was after the shooting, according to you, right?
I don't remember.
The appeals court lambasted Martinez's, quote, argumentative phrasing of questions, adding that Martinez's aggressive tone and combative bullying behavior were recurring issues in the trial.
As he was
No, just show me. That's what I'm asking you to do, not talk. Show me. Show me the linebacker pose.
he got down and,
Well, show me the linebacker pose. That's what I'm asking for you to do.
okay, he went like that and he turned his head and grabbed my waist.
Just like that, correct?
Pretty much.
But in a 29-page opinion, the 3-member appeals panel unanimously concluded that prosecutor Juan Martinez's conduct in the case did not outweigh Jodi Arias' guilt.
Well, actually, in that interview, you also said, I'm innocent. No jury will convict me. Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I did say that.
So it's the same thing that you're saying here, right?
Yes.
So it's not that you were going to commit suicide. It's because you truly believe that you didn't do anything wrong here, right?
I believed. Overruled. I believed, I knew that I was innocent of first-degree murder, and I did plan to be dead.
The Maricopa County Attorney's Office fired Martinez in February. He had served as a prosecutor there for 31 years. Martinez is appealing his dismissal. Jodi Arias admitted killing Alexander, but claimed she acted in self-defense after he attacked her. Alexander was stabbed nearly 30 times. His throat was slit, and he was shot in the head.
All right, so you look at this decision. On the one hand, Jodi Arias loses. But I want to talk about Juan Martinez because he was utterly attacked in the opinion. Let's bring back in our think tank tonight. We've got J. Hebert, Neama Rahmani, and Monica Lindstrom. Monica's out there in Arizona. Monica, your thoughts about this attack on Juan Martinez? From my perspective, it was like he was acting like a criminal defense attorney, and he just gave him a taste of their own medicine.
Come on, Vinny, you can tell you were a prosecutor, right? You know, I sat in that courtroom for the majority of the trial, or I was out in front of the cameras talking about it and watching it then. And there were times I was in that courtroom and my stomach hurt because of Juan Martinez. And what I mean by that is he pushed the line so many times. And clearly the Court of Appeals thinks he stepped right over that line. And I have to agree with them. Now, that being said, I wrote about this on KTAR.com, and Juan Martinez is a fantastic prosecutor. He is cool as a cucumber, ice in the veins, clutch if you want to use some sports terms there. But the way that he conducted himself during this trial was over and above. And that's what the Court of Appeals is talking about. And I'm not saying over and above as in he did a fantastic job. I mean, he did a good job. But they're saying he forgot his role. He was too zealous, right? That's not what a prosecutor is supposed to be. A prosecutor is supposed to seek justice, not play or do the tactics that criminal defense attorneys often have to employ. So I don't disagree with what the Court of Appeals said. They were pretty tough on him, but our Court of Appeals has a tendency of being tough on prosecutors when they step over the line.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Monica. But it's just not Juan Martinez in the courtroom. It's him outside the courtroom, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking about someone that leaked the name of a juror to a blogger he was having sex with. He leered at. He made unprofessional comments towards female reporters. You know, law clerks, female law clerks had to deal with issues with Juan Martinez. I mean, look, if all these allegations are true, this guy's a creeper. He deserves to be disciplined and disbarred by the Arizona State Bar and fired by the DA's office. So I completely agree with their decision to move forward. I mean, setting aside all the issues with the Arias case itself.
Well, Neama, I got you there on that part. Okay, to me, that's a separate issue, and they're dealing with it. I'm talking about what we saw and heard in that courtroom. J. Hebert, how many criminal defense attorneys have I seen do exactly what Juan Martinez did? It's just, you know, the appellate court never deals with it because guess what? When the defense wins, the prosecution doesn't get to appeal it. So they never read those transcripts where aggressive and really good criminal defense attorneys do what Juan Martinez was doing to witnesses.
You're absolutely right. But the most important thing from this opinion is that this panel felt absolutely 100% confident in Jodi Arias' guilt. And remember, she had 2 penalty phases, and it took a second jury to decide not to sentence her to death, but in fact give her a life sentence. The bottom line is This opinion sends a message. This woman was guilty unequivocally, beyond an exclusion of every reasonable doubt, of first-degree murder, and she will serve the remainder of her life in prison. The next round, as you mentioned in the opening, she'll be attacking her lawyers for ineffective assistance of counsel. That's the script that's coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Here's Kirk Nermy talking about Juan Martinez.
I agreed with the Court of Appeals, I guess to say, as his bombastic behavior. We objected to it. I've worked with many professional prosecutors in the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and haven't seen anything like that. And you certainly won't catch me anywhere defending Mr. Martinez's conduct.
I don't know, Monica. I think there's some thin skin out there in that desert you live in.
No,
I mean,
Juan Martinez.
And you said, Monica, you said justice. Isn't justice the fact that she got convicted? It wasn't like he was trying to convict someone who was not guilty.
See, Vinny, this was not a difficult case. When you look at all the evidence that Juan Martinez had, he was going to get a conviction, okay? He wasn't probably going to get death, and he didn't get death, but he was going to get a conviction. Easy case, lots of evidence. He didn't need to act the way that he acted. I believe he gave a lot of prosecutors a bad name. Now, the public loved him. They loved him, Mr. Wonderful, right? Because he did what they wanted him to do. But in the true role of a prosecutor, he overstepped. He made innuendos. He did things that just weren't necessary. And when you look at the opinion of the Court of Appeals, that's what they're talking about. And even Judge Jones, in the concurring, he said, basically, thank God the jury did what they did, even in light of what Juan Martinez and how he acted. So it's not that there's thin skin. I think prosecutors have a different role than a criminal defense attorney, and they have different rules to play by. You know that. We all know that. And he didn't play by the rules. Luckily, there was enough evidence there that she's not getting out and will never get out. But I think they got it right. They nailed it.
There. No, I agree on the different roles, but look, the defense is grasping at straws here, right? One is the Juan Martinez issue. The other basis of appeal is the pretrial publicity. Well, look, I mean, this is a high-profile case. Cameras in the courtroom. We know what court TV does. This isn't grounds to overturn a first-degree murder conviction of an admitted murderer who her only real defense was self-defense, which was clearly rejected by the jurors. So,
I'm so glad you brought up the publicity part of it, because the nerve of Killer Arias to blame the media, the same media that she invited into her jail cell for her post-arrest press conference, where there's video of her putting on makeup before she answers all the questions and then tells, I think it was Inside Edition, no jury will ever convict me. And that was used against her during the trial. All right. Think Tank is still with us tonight. When we come back, folks, what is next? Oh, we've got this. The courtrooms are shut down. Jay Hebert is not inside a courtroom, ladies and gentlemen. So how on earth do we deal with it? Is the virtual courtroom the courtroom of the future? We'll talk about it when we return.
Welcome to Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
It's a busy day here at Court TV.
That is the game changer.
You have to look at everything in this case.
He murdered our daughter.
You take the hose and squeeze it.
Guilty on all counts.
This is true crime all the time.
We continue our gavel-to-gavel coverage,
And you're not going to miss a moment of it.
This is what I love to do.
Restrictive orders in New York, the actor's day in court will likely be postponed due to the coronavirus. Gooding has been charged with forcible touching, a misdemeanor, and sex abuse in the third degree related to an alleged groping incident. He has pleaded not guilty to those charges. And a jury for a capital case in Florida is getting released early. The judge in Florida versus Warner has agreed to dismiss the jury, even though the case is only half over. It's a case that we covered here, gavel to gavel on Court TV, the shooting death of 27-year-old Adam Hilaire, who was lured to his death after an outing with a woman that he met online through a dating website. Now, on March 18th, this jury convicted Warner of first-degree murder in Hilaire's death, and Warner's case was set to go to a penalty phase just 2 days ago. Jurors would have decided between life in prison or death for the defendant, but that part of the trial was postponed due to COVID-19 restrictions. Jurors were told they wouldn't need to return because a new jury is going to be picked. Juror Cynthia Basford told Court TV the call about being released came as a surprise.
There was mixed emotions, relief more than anything, because then I didn't have that fate of another human being's life in my hands. For that, I was grateful because it's not something I would have really want to do. I did it because I felt it was necessary, but not because I wanted to.
The penalty phase has not been set yet, but there is a status conference that is scheduled for May 12th to discuss between those parties when this case will continue to go forward. And a Florida sheriff is asking for tips from the public in an investigation related to the popular Netflix series Tiger King. The documentary follows the life of exotic pet keeper Joseph Maldonado Passage, also known as Joe Exotic, throughout the series. You see a very contentious relationship between Maldonado Passage and Carol Baskin. She's the owner of a big cat rescue facility. Hillsborough County Sheriff is looking for any tips in the disappearance of Jack Don Lewis, the husband of Baskin, who disappeared back in 1997. Maldonado Passage is serving a 22-year prison sentence for murder for hire against Baskin and implies repeatedly that she killed her husband and possibly fed them to her tigers. That's all for your Court TV news break. Vinny, back to you.
Julia, just a little follow-up with that juror from the Warner case, and that was amazing. It almost seemed like she would be willing to wait, whether it's a month or so or whenever everyone's going to get back in there to do it, but was relieved. Interesting response there. Maybe this judge could have held on to this jury.
She did say she was relieved, but that she was determined and she knew that this was her responsibility, because even going into this case, she did not want to sit on such a serious trial, but said this was her civic duty. But there were some other issues with this jury. There were 2 who were dismissed even before the full jury was released, and that had to do with one juror going on Facebook and another having some work restrictions.
All right. And once again, gives me that faith that I have in our jury system when I hear from jurors like that. So great interview,
Absolutely.
Julia. Thank you so much. And as we're saying, we know we've got this problem here with COVID-19, the coronavirus, that has shut down our system of justice to a certain extent. You're doing social distancing, trying to keep people away from one another. Well, you know what a trial is. A trial is, you've got lawyers in the courtroom, the judge, the witnesses, and then you've got jurors who have to sit next to each other day in and day out, then lock themselves in a room and scream at each other, trying to come to a verdict. Well, how can our system get the wheels moving a little bit so we don't come to a complete grinding halt? One way that Julie Grant looked at were virtual courtrooms. Take a listen.
We're now functioning under emergency measures.
The coronavirus is threatening to create a huge backlog in the criminal justice system. Some courts are trying to move forward and limit exposure to the virus by conducting hearings remotely.
We've made the decision to temporarily move to a virtual court model.
In New York, jury trials are on hold, and in criminal courts and family courts, judges and staff are only performing essential functions, things that cannot be postponed without serious consequences to the parties involved.
All essential business in these 2 courts, including arraignments and emergency proceedings, will be conducted remotely by video conference, telephone, and electronic filing.
Before jury trials were suspended due to the coronavirus, a Florida judge allowed a witness to testify via Skype after the former police officer came down with flu-like symptoms.
What was the reason, Mr. Ostronskis, that the clothing and the shoe items were collected?
My understanding from the lead detectives were they wanted that for possible DNA evidence or any evidence that could link them to the possible crime.
That testimony came after both sides agreed to let the witness testify by video from home to limit exposure to people in the courtroom. But remote testimony can be controversial. The Sixth Amendment guarantees that a defendant has the right to be confronted with the witnesses against him, which has largely been interpreted as a face-to-face encounter. So that could open up another avenue of appeal for some defendants. And it's not just the rights of the defendants at issue.
All spectators will be banned from 9C.
Because of the coronavirus, the judge in Florida also ended up banning spectators from the courtroom, including members of the victim's family. That brought an objection from the prosecutor, who argued they should be allowed to stay and that watching a video feed was not an acceptable compromise.
Obviously, that's much different than being able to sit here in person and seeing the entire trial. Our cameras are limited to certain angles.
Some legal experts worry due process will suffer during this crisis because criminal defendants might not get a full and fair hearing. But for now, courts are doing what they virtually can to keep the wheels of justice turning.
All right, so we're doing some things virtually, but could we do a jury trial virtually? I mean, I've been doing 15 Zoom meetings a day. Let's bring back in our think tank. Is there any way that we could do a virtual trial, put the jury in a safe place, have cameras everywhere, do a Zoom meeting as witnesses are testifying? Jay, what do you think?
I think that's not realistic. I don't think we're going to see jury trials until this process has come to a conclusion. The tolling of speedy trial is an important legal concept, and basically all of the courts and all the Supreme Courts of each state have said on a state level, we're going to toll that speedy trial, so folks are going to have to wait for their day in court. We're in a holding pattern here in Florida till April 17th. We're confident that date will be extended. But you know what, Vinny, that Warner trial that we covered a couple of weeks ago with that dramatic verdict is a perfect example of how this has to happen. In Warner, they swore the jury panel in, they started the trial, and if they had stopped because of the virus, then there's a good chance he would have been able to say that jeopardy had attached because the juror was sworn in and he started his trial. So that judge forced that trial to go through, and justice was served in a dramatic way. One of the most dramatic verdicts I've ever seen on Verdict Watch in all the years of doing this with you guys at Court TV. It was an amazing process. And that jury, even though they won't get to decide the fate, the judge under Florida Statute 913 can assemble a special jury to come back and sit and listen to the penalty phase and determine what is the appropriate sentence, death or life in prison in Florida.
All right, let me throw this out. Neama, what if we got HD cameras? If we used all HD cameras, could we do a jury trial virtually?
I think criminal, no, but I'm a former prosecutor. I'm doing civil work now. I think we got a shot in civil cases, and this is why. You don't have the confrontation clause issue where you have cooperators or domestic violence victims or anything that's going to really jeopardize that criminal defendant. And a lot of these civil cases, they're all going to arbitration anyway. Things are getting streamlined. We're doing mock juries all remotely now through Skype and, Zoom and these types of things. So I think we got a shot. Civil will be first because, again, you don't have those same fundamental rights that you do in criminal cases. I think criminal is going to be a long way behind just because, again, you do have those confrontation clause issues that we've talked about.
Yeah, I think it's really good if you separate those two, civil and criminal. But something else to think about, criminal cases or civil cases, it's not just the trial, right? There is so much that leads up to the trial: evidentiary hearings, status conferences, pretrial conferences. I think a lot of that can be done by Zoom or by phone or FaceTime, whatever it may be. There's some technology in the courtrooms because we already do telephonic conferences with judges, especially in federal court. They seem to have the resources to do that. So I think we could, if the state courts, which Arizona, our judges for some reason don't have much technology to do everything telephonically or via Zoom for some reason. I don't quite know those reasons yet, but
they're too busy yelling at Juan Martinez. The judges are too busy in Arizona yelling at Juan Martinez, Monica. They should go and figure this out.
Well,
just
he's
lawyers
gone
are
now,
dinosaurs,
right?
you know? Yeah, lawyers are dinosaurs, man. I mean, some of them, you know, are still, I'm surprised they're not showing up in court with wigs. And, you know, even when I went to school,
good
a lot of
God.
these guys, you know, I learned through books. You know, there was no Lexis or Westlaw back then, and these
That's
judges
true.
are even older than me. So, you know, getting them to adopt technology, it's a challenge. I think this new
But we
generation,
need
these
to.
youngsters coming up. I agree, absolutely. There's no
We
question.
need to do this, Vinny, because if we don't, the backlog is just going to get huge. So if the courts allow the judges to do this, and if the courts get together very quickly and set out some guidelines, I think a lot of the pretrial conferences and status conferences, be it civil or criminal, can be taken care of. Trials, on the other hand, no, especially criminal, and also serious evidentiary hearings. No, you can't do those either, because there's that aspect of that face to face and be able to see, is that person sweating? Are they frowning, or is that a wrinkle or a smile line? HD cameras can't do all that. And plus, Vinny, we just don't have the money to do all that.
But I do like the cameras.
All
in the
right, how about a
courtroom, Vinny.
4K camera?
No,
You know,
we don't have the money. No.
I'll tell you a
Can you
perfect
imagine the
example,
makeup
though.
everyone would have to wear?
Perfect example is we have canceled and now reset 72 depositions in the last 30 days. So we had 72 depositions set over the next 6 weeks that are now going to be done through the Zoom capacity with court reporters working remotely. And that's a process, because we have to get all the exhibits that we're using in the deposition. In a homicide case, we have to get all those marked and put into evidence without a court reporter sitting next to the person who's being deposed. But like everybody on the panel said, we're working through it. It's new to us, just like our kids and our grandkids that are sitting home going to school, looking at a computer like we're looking at tonight from our remote locations. We're all in a new world. It's just what we have to do to get through it.
Yeah, but it really depends.
All right, when
on
we
those
come
judges,
back,
right?
it's time. Yep. When we come back, though, folks, it's time to hear from you. You've heard from us. Your reaction to that pastor down in Tampa arrested for holding Sunday service. Don't go anywhere.
I'm not ashamed to be arrested for the First Amendment of the United States, which I know other people think I was getting arrested for other things. I mean, you can make up whatever charges you want to. Ultimately, I was being arrested for the First Amendment, and that's it. And I know the sheriff said we can't hide behind the First Amendment, but we can, because I was sworn in as a citizen of the Constitutional Republic of the United States, and I raised my hand to pledge to defend the Constitution of America against enemies, foreign or domestic.
All right, that's the pastor from down in Tampa who was arrested for holding Sunday service in violation of the emergency orders because of what's happening in the world around us that precludes large gatherings of people. There was a large gathering at his church. Tonight, we've got your reaction on social media to this one, and we begin, as we always do, with our comment of the day. Tonight, it comes from our friend Christina, who writes, arresting him is questionable if there wasn't an order/law in place stating that churches were not to have parishioners attending services. If the advice was simply a guideline, then no, he should not have been arrested. He needs to have had effective notice that he was not to have people at the church, in my opinion. And Jay Hebert down there not going to church in Tampa. Jay, there was notice in this case. He was told, he was asked, he was advised ahead of time, went ahead, threatening to do it again, perhaps.
Yeah, he's going to stake his claim. And for the viewers tonight, this is a little law school 101. When we do a balancing act under this particular issue, the pivotal case that we all talked about in law school 30 plus years ago was if you ran into a movie theater and yelled fire, 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 is that freedom of speech? And that's kind of how we have to look at this situation. The government has to balance whether or not there is a compelling interest that it keeps that speech from being prohibited. And in this particular situation, obviously, we're in a health crisis. Obviously, this order came down. It's interesting. You would have thought that there would have been a notice to appear, not an arrest, which is a different way to effectuate it. And this is a second-degree misdemeanor here in Florida, which the maximum penalty is 60 days in jail and a $500 fine. So this is going to be about civil liberties. This is going to be about, he's lawyered up with a team of folks that deal with First Amendment issues. And it's really going to be about whether or not this is a compelling issue. He'll make an example of it. He'll probably do it again. And we'll be back talking about this next week on Wednesday night. So it'll be interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Pauletta tonight writing, in my opinion, the pastor is sending a message that it's okay to be disobedient. Religious organizations should be held to the same standards as everyone else, regardless of faith. There should be no gathering, and social distancing should be their practice to stop the spread and save lives. They're adding to the problem and must not realize they can't attend any services if they're sick or dead. You know, Neama, this is church versus state. Who wins the battle?
State wins here. I don't know what's going on in Tampa. You got crazy Carol Baskin who fed her husband to the tigers allegedly, and now you got this guy who thinks God and his air purifiers are going to ward off coronavirus. But I mean, he had notice, he was told it's groups of 10 or more. The law is absolutely clear, and this is one of those guys that believes in sort of deep state theories. This is a Chinese virus. Bill Gates and his wife, you know, infected the country. So I'm glad that law enforcement there is doing the right thing. If he was arrested, he was released immediately on $500 bond, but like, he's got to comply with the law. You can't use God as an excuse not to.
Don't forget, Neama, Tampa also has J. Bear, by the way. Monica, let me read one more from Glenda. Let me read one from Glenda tonight. We're supposed to act as Christians, follow the law of the land. It's biblical. We have hours online and haven't missed a service. Just our pastor goes. He should have the same as any other that breaks the law. He puts the people's lives in danger, and that's not love, Monica.
Yeah, well, let's look at this. You've got the legality, which we've already talked about. There was a law that said you can't have more than 10 people together. He violated that law. Now he's been arrested and charged, okay? Now let's look at the reality. I think about 3 weeks into this, now we are starting to get mad. We're starting to look at other people and go, wait a minute, you're not following the rule. I have to follow the rule. Why aren't you? And so you're going to see, I think, the social ridicule and the reality of people getting upset because people are breaking the rules or think that they're special or that God, Buddha, or whoever is going to save them and clear the air out. So I think we've got the legal part there handled, even though it's questionable everywhere else, it seems like. But now society is going to get into this, and you're going to have that pressure, which I think is a good thing.
Judith tonight writing, well, Governor DeSantis said he doesn't have the authority to cancel large events, but it's suggested that they do so on their own. So I'm not sure the church couldn't file suit under the First Amendment saying they're being discriminated against because there was no literal ban in place. However, he did enact a stay-at-home order that begins tomorrow at midnight. So I imagine that means everyone considered non-essential, including churches. Go ahead.
I thought that I read, and I could be wrong, but let's just say hypothetically, there was an order put out by the county or the state or feds or the municipality, whatever, that said, this is an order. This is an executive order. You cannot have groups of more than 10 or more than 100 or whatever it may be. Once that order comes down and it is a mandate, that's law until it's challenged in court, just like the president can issue an executive order. So if there was actually an order in place, a law, a mandate, then he's guilty of it. If it's not, and it's loosey-goosey, which seems to be here in Maricopa County in Arizona, it is, along with those Court of Appeal judges, right? Then he's got a point. Then you can bring up civil liberties. But if there is an order or a law, too bad, so sad, you broke it.
All right. What a great job. Monica Lindstrom, Neama Rahmani, and Jay Hebert. Appreciate your time tonight. Stay safe, as always. We'll see you again, hopefully. All right, folks. Again, we're going to be here every night from 8 to 11, telling you all those stories that you want to hear, that you need to hear. Stories about the trials that we are tracking around the country, crime and justice, unsolved mysteries, all those stories, and also, as we were just discussing, the impact of the coronavirus on our system of justice. So join us again tomorrow night right here on Court TV Live. I am Vinnie Politan. And as always, folks, stay safe, follow the rules, help each other out, and from a distance, don't forget to hug the kids.